Would everyone please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let me just point out before we get into the regular meeting, I'd like to announce that when we have candidates who come before us, at least candidates, we have Chris Alfrey and Rick Miller with us tonight. Both of them are running for state reps in different districts, so did I miss anybody else who might have shown up? Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Thank you all for coming. All right. Scott, do you have this first one? Or, oh, Sharon does.
Thank you, and good evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Sharon Valiante, Assistant Director of Public Works for the City of Missouri City. But I'm here tonight representing the Texas Public Works Association. I am currently Vice President of the state chapter and have served as past president of the local branch of the Texas Public Works Association. On behalf of the association, I'm here tonight to recognize the city's regional water treatment plant project that was awarded an Environmental Excellence Award for projects greater than $25 million, but less than $75 million. Excuse me. But first, I would like to take this opportunity to say a few words about the project. Imagine receiving a mandate that you must reduce your historical groundwater use by 30% within 5 years, followed by a reduction to 60% in the year 2025. That is exactly what happened to the City of Missouri City and the 30-plus municipal utility districts that provided treated groundwater to the residents of Missouri City. In addition to having to fund an alternative water supply, the city had to coordinate funding to design and build the plant, do public outreach, conform to regulatory requirements for the design and construction of the treatment and transmission facilities to deliver treated surface water within this abbreviated time frame. Oh my, what challenges lay ahead. The challenges of establishing a regional water group, finding equitable cost recovery and project funding from the numerous participants, and completing design and construction of a regional surface water treatment plant with an initial capacity of 10 million gallons per day and an ultimate capacity of 33 million gallons per day were both numerous and complex. However, the project not only met all these challenges, but exceeded expectations. The principal project team included the City of Missouri City, Improtep Hids and Todd, which is the design engineer, and the contractor, Pepper Lawson. The project accomplishments included a phased approach to the plant construction that accelerated construction efforts to allow for multiple contractors working independently in their respective specialties, innovative engineering design that resulted in significant cost savings, which reduced project costs, such as modular design concepts for process units that allow expansion of treatment capacity to phase 2 of 20 million gallons per day without additional structures, equipment pre-purchasing for membranes and disinfection equipment, on-site sodium hypochlorite generation for disinfection for public safety, a building designed to withstand 130 miles per hour sustained winds and has an emergency electrical generator to continuously provide potable water during and after hurricane events. Design and construction completion with less than 1% in traditional change orders. Completion of the first phase to provide 10 million gallons per day capacity at 90% of the estimated cost. So on behalf of the Texas Public Works Association, I'm proud to present the award for environmental excellence tonight to the City of Missouri City.
Yay!
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have pictures that we're going to show of the ribbon cutting that we had the other night, ladies? But nothing tonight, and we received this award. Shame on us. Yes, Bobby?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, I'm wearing another hat tonight as Treasurer of the Missouri City Police and Fire Auxiliary. I'll ask other members of the auxiliary to come up right now. We have our President Helen Morris, our Vice President Mary Amaya, Second Vice President Becky McGilvery, Secretary Michelle Broussard, and various members of the auxiliary. Would you like to speak, or you want me to continue?
You're doing great. You're doing great.
This past March, I'm the treasurer of the association. This past March, we held our annual benefit for the police and fire departments of the city. And with the great help of corporate sponsors and citizens who attended that benefit, we raised a little over $24,000. So with that said, we are going to present both the police department and the fire and rescue services with a check each for $12,000.
Big check.
Now, I'm working with, you might put us here for...
The big guy in the middle.
But that's not the same. Okay.
Before I forget, here's the real one. Thank you very much. Don't lose it. You bet. We'll stand on this side, okay? I just want to make sure we get you. Get friendly.
Get off the TV.
Yeah, I know.
Quit coming up here and making the public comments. Get off
Do we need to back up? Yes? All right, back up here. Get even more.
Opposite flag.
They'll get where you can be.
The opposite flag. The opposite flag.
Flat on behind the chair.
Come down.
Scoot back a little bit. You're doing good.
Okay, everybody look this way, please. Please. One more time.
There's a lot of money here in the city.
Got smiles on there. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right, you're going to spend it all in one place now.
I think he's already got his spread.
Got a motorcycle there?
Do you get part of that too? Oh, well, you tell me that you're supposed to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Very nice. All right, item 4, public comments. It's an opportunity for anyone to address council on an agenda, on an item that is a concern of theirs on the agenda. Mr. Sean John has an item. Just state your name and address, Sean.
Madam Secretary, my name is Sean M. Jones. I live at 3923 Point Clear Drive. Good evening, Mayor and distinguished members of council.
Yes,
A
sir.
belated Father's Day to you all.
Thank you.
Later this summer, the great state of Texas will send 155 delegates to the National Convention in Tampa. These delegates are chosen amongst several million citizens residing in thousands of villages, towns, cities, and unincorporated areas within the 254 counties. Earning one of these slots is not a trivial task. Tonight, I stand here informing council that one of Missouri City's finest citizens has been chosen to be one of the 155. His name, and he's my friend, Dale R. Gibble. Would you stand, Dale? Dale and his wife, Mrs. Gibble, have been Missouri City residents for over 30 years. Both have been involved in local politics for over 20 years. The past several years, Dale has distinguished himself by volunteering for campaigns in both Fort Bend and Harris County, by being the presiding officer over key conventions, and by recruiting individuals to fill vacancies for precinct chairs. Simply put, Dale is one of those individuals who just gets stuff done. He is humble, soft-spoken man of honor and integrity. He does not like self-promotion or lots of fanfare. In fact, I had to trick him tonight just to get him to stand up in front of you all. In closing, Dale will represent Missouri City proudly at the Tampa Convention. I want to personally thank him for years of great service, and I want to thank you all for the time and the forum to inform council and the public of his high achievement. God bless Missouri City, Fort Bend County, the state of Texas, and the United States of America.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Item 5 are staff reports. There are no staff reports.
Can you have another one?
Do what?
Can you have another one?
No, that's here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. Item 6 is a consent agenda. There is a person who would like to address 6B, so is there a motion to approve 6A?
I move we approve
through F.
6A through F, excluding B.
Second.
Uh-huh.
I second that.
Councilman Marshall made the motion, Councilman Wynn made the second. All those in favor, motion carries. Item 6B is consider awarding contract for plumbing services for municipal facilities, and Chris Alfrey is here to address that.
Thank you, Mayor. Madam Secretary, my name is Chris Alfred, out of 3127 Glen Lakes Lane. My question in reference to 6B is when you look at the financial statement that was attached on that for the bid itself, it appears that we are going with the highest bidder, and I would just ask council to maybe communicate why that is the case, if that is the case, or if there's some other information that wasn't available to the citizens in reference to that item.
Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, let Scott address that.
Mayor and Council, I apologize, I'm not fully up to speed since the purchasing department was heavily involved in this, on that, but I don't know that I agree. I thought we were going with the lowest bid on that. They were the best value bidder on response time, on the discount on materials, on trip charge, and we are going with the lower bidder on the project, not the higher bidder on that. And again, this is an on-call contract. This is not a set amount of work on a regular basis on that. But when you look at their labor hours of 72 versus the 82 for the second bidder on that, the trip charge is higher, but it's normally not a big factor when you look at that on the plumbing status. But historically, the way we implement the contract, that would normally be worked out to be the lowest bidder on that. We'd rarely work on the overtime side of the equation. They do have a higher overtime rate on that, and their trip charge is more, but a trip charge is a one-time charge per job. The big factor when it comes into it is the labor hours.
Scott, it says best value bidder. Are there items other than just those particular items that are taken into consideration? Or, I mean, Is it a
Well,
a
we
combination of factors?
We do check references, we do look at their historical report on their references in other cities, references if they have previous work with the city of Missouri City on that. But the other thing is, the familiarity of the technicians with the technology and the job that we have. We've been standardizing for a number of years on specific equipment, on trying to get the same fixtures and everything. You know, this is not an AC, but that's a good example, all the same model of AC components. And so the familiarity with the technicians and a lot of the equipment, the corporation stops, valve systems, and everything else also comes into play on how you do the hourly rate on that, and what it will actually take them to complete the job on that.
Scott, the only question I have, looking at this, the labor, regular service hours, the hourly is the $72.50, right?
Correct.
And then the other is $82.50.
$82.50, $10 an hour more.
But the labor after hours, the trip charge, which seems to be higher.
That is
I guess
correct.
that was the gentleman's question.
Most of the work, other than an emergency, most of the work for this type of service is 8 to 5, Monday through Friday type work. That's because those employees are there. We have a city employee that brings them to the facility. For example, if they go into PD, they have to be badged in and escorted and everything else. But most of this work is primarily 80-90% of this work is going to be during normal working hours.
I know, so you're saying normal response time, it says 1.5 hours versus 1 hour. So if you look at the hourly, is the only one that's different. So I guess when you put down best valued bidder, as if I heard correctly, you were saying, is that this particular company, Raven Mechanical, has done work for us in the past?
They have done work for us in the past, and we've been happy with their work, yes, sir.
The other part of this, make sure you look at, is where it says estimated quantity. That's actually the criteria that they're using to balance it. So, for example, they're giving 40 points to regular service hours, which even after you add labor after hours and trip charge together, that's only 15 points that goes towards it. So the criteria they're using on the evaluation isn't to where everything has the same weight. It is more heavily weighted in regards to regular service hours because that's at the time that's needed versus some of the other factors.
So is 40 hours of labor are typical for a year?
Yes, sir. It's based upon our past use of this type of contract.
So that's where I'm seeing is 40 hours, you're gaining $10 an hour on the labor, so that's $400. The trip charge is $40 times 10, that's $400. So it basically makes these two equal as far as cost between labor and trip charge. If they're doing it during normal, regular business hours, that's when it comes to whether you're happy with them or not, if they basically come out equal.
Well, if they know
you're saying
if
Raven
they know the
is
equipment,
a
it makes a
history,
difference.
then I don't have a problem.
If they don't have to reinvent the wheel when they come to work on a piece of equipment.
Just saying one offsets the other, so basically makes it back to history.
Okay?
I move we approve item 6B.
All right. Councilman Marshall made the motions, or a second?
Second.
Pro Tem Wyatt made the second. All those in favor? Motion carried. All right. Chris, did that answer the question? If not, I'd suggest you get with Charles Oberender, the purchasing director. He's not here tonight. He might.
That was plenty of information.
Good.
I know why the city made that decision.
Been great. Thank you. All right, item 7 are public hearings and related actions. 7A is a zoning public hearing and ordinance.
7A1, an ordinance
Yeah.
of the City of Missouri City, Texas, amending Section 4 definitions and Section 13 sign regulations of Appendix A of Missouri City Code entitled the City of Missouri City Zoning Ordinance, providing rules and regulations for the location of signs, repealing all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a penalty, providing an effective date, and providing for severability.
And this is the second and final reading. Have there been any changes since the last meeting?
Yes, there have been.
Really?
Changes that
Oh,
council...
book full, huh?
Have there been any changes other than those incorporated in the original motion?
No changes other than what was incorporated, but staff has prepared options under vehicle signs for council to consider and to choose from for the vehicle sign regulations.
Okay. And what are those?
Let me get to. Okay. Option A is to define any sign that's placed on any vehicle as a vehicle sign, and then allow those vehicles to be placed on a premises consistent with what we already have for the placement of commercial vehicles. But in terms of vehicles in commercial districts, they would have to be placed so that they're not visible from a public street. Go ahead.
At all?
At all. They could be placed to the rear of the building, provided that that side is not visible to a public street, to the side of a building, provided that that side is not visible to a public street, or anywhere else located on the premises if the rear or the side are not available to them, but that vehicle can't be more than, or within 100 feet of the street.
What happens when they can't change the location? They can't change from being within 100 feet of the street. So you're saying they can't have...
Under this option, they wouldn't be able to place that vehicle on that premises. So they would have to make arrangements for whether it's storage or for another location for them to place that vehicle. And then they would also be able to place it anywhere on that premises temporarily while they're loading, unloading. And then they would also be allowed to place it anywhere on any other premises so long as they're using the services of the premises that it's on. And so that's option A.
And this is any size vehicle?
That would be, the definition for vehicle sign would include any size vehicle and then the placement of a sign on any size. And then these location criteria would only be placed on vehicles 6,000 gross vehicle weight rating or higher that contain a vehicle sign.
Wait a minute, say that again?
The definition for vehicle sign would include all vehicles, no matter what the size of the vehicle is. But the location criteria, the placement to the rear, to the side, anywhere, would be limited to vehicles that are 6,000 pounds in gross vehicle weight rating or higher.
Or higher.
So 8,500 pounds, which is not permitted in those zones except for the purpose of delivery or providing a service, that wouldn't apply.
This would apply to them if they were, say if they had in the vehicle or the trailer, if they're on a site and it meets the criteria of the weight threshold, then they would be subject to these requirements. So under option A, they could only park or place that vehicle in the rear if they're not temporarily unloading passengers or merchandise.
So if Lowe's had their truck, you know, I can't think of too many places that they could park their truck.
That wouldn't be visible from a public street.
I can't think of too many places. I don't think there's any place.
For the Lowe's property, their front side, unfortunately, is probably the least visible from a public street. And so option A may not work for them, depending on where it's placed. Now, with the Lowe's property, they do have a PD.
And
So
we created
it's a
the
little
parking
different.
spaces for them.
They have designated areas
Right.
for their outside placement and storage.
Because the one that is actually on the side, which will be the east side of the building, we actually we painted the fire lanes around so that they could in fact park that truck.
So, that- yeah,
there.
so it could be closer to the building and not up against the subdivision. Yes. So but that's option A.
But again, Jennifer, that's been addressed in the PD.
For Lowe's, yes, yes.
And that could be addressed in a PD for others going forward.
Possibly, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Yeah, and I mean, the location can always be spelled out
Right.
within a PD.
Okay. Option B.
Option B would be the same definition as option A, and then requiring, and this is similar to what we have in place currently, and essentially requiring that a vehicle with a gross vehicle weight rating above 6,000 pounds or a trailer cannot be placed so as to be a sign. So if the intention behind the placement of that vehicle is for a sign, then this requirement would prohibit that. And that's pretty much what we have now under our exemptions.
What is it parked at because that's the only place they could park it?
if they can only, well, and I think some of the legal concern with this type of option is trying to understand the
That's
intent
right.
behind someone placing a vehicle as a sign, as opposed to someone who may
How do you prove
just be
intent,
placing
and
it
how do
there.
we accept intent?
I mean, that may be the vehicle they drive back and forth to work.
Correct, we have historically utilized the ordinance in the book to prosecute those type of matters, and that is something that I think is determined initially by our code enforcement when citing those, and I will say it presents a challenge for prosecution, but it's not been insurmountable. But I can't indicate that we've had 100% guilty findings on
Yeah.
some of those matters.
Because I can understand that, you know, someone has that SUV or whatever, let's just say Leonetti. I know that he's got it. He's got signage on his personal vehicle that he drives and obviously parks in front of. I don't think that's who we're trying to address here. That's his, I mean, he drives it back and forth to work. That's how he gets back and forth to work. The big truck we're most concerned about is not what that guy drives to work every day. That cargo van is there all the time, and it's never moved, and it's there for a single purpose. It's there as a sign.
And that's the type of evidence that the city tries to produce in those type of matters.
And I think that's what we're really trying to address here, is not the person who has their personal vehicle that they drive, it's those that purposely park them there as signs. And we know who those are.
The smaller the sign, the less visibility from the public right-of-way. Those are all considerations, both in an initial citation by enforcement and evidence or the contrary of that that's produced in the prosecution of those cases.
So what's the other options?
Okay, option C, and I apologize for the formatting on that. Option C is to put the weight threshold within the definition for a vehicle sign. And essentially, anything smaller than that, whether or not the vehicle has a sign on it, would not be considered a vehicle sign. But anything over that threshold would be considered a vehicle sign, and then there would be a prohibition on vehicle signs.
And that's what I think we're trying to address, really.
Yep. I like the weight option.
And then option D is similar to option A. Same definition as option A and B. And then the requirements there are vehicles over that weight threshold could only be placed behind the building, anywhere on the premises, provided that the sign on the vehicle does not exceed 9 square feet. And then anywhere on another premises, provided that they're using that premises for the normal course of those business operations.
But then for D, if there's no space behind the building?
With option D, if there's no space behind the building, they wouldn't be able to park it there.
Well, my concern is that, you know, I guess personally, I don't like the sign on the truck, but in reality, you know, when going around this city, you know, we got school buses, private school buses, that may weigh more than, have a gross weight than 6,000 pounds.
Right.
And can't park anywhere else. There's a business right down at 2234 in Turtle Creek. They don't have anywhere else to park, you know, and that's their furniture business truck. And so, we got, right across the street, we got a daycare facility that have 2 buses out front. You go down Highway 6, you got a church with buses out front. You know, I mean, I don't necessarily like it, but I think we need to be able to apply something that's going to be equitable to everybody involved. And I think we're looking at one source. And we probably all don't agree with, but how do you apply it evenly among everybody else? And that's the difficulty. I mean, there are a number of other businesses in this city that have vehicles that park them out front And you know the thing about it is I drove by and I didn't find the van that's parked out at Cartwright and 1092 as being offensive. I really didn't start thinking about it until we started thinking about this. And so,
Well, I think one of your pieces that you're concerned about, we could probably exclude those vehicles that are used for public transportation.
but they're not, they're private. They're not
No,
public.
but I'm saying they're transporting the general public,
But-
meaning that those I'm talking about those school buses.
No, I'm talking about nursery school buses.
That's what I'm
Private
talking about.
nursery. Well, they're not transporting the general public. They're transporting
Their clientele.
transporting their clientele.
But I'm just saying, they're
But then-
transporting people.
But then also comes into play the furniture guy.
Yeah, but how do you be
Transporting
fair?
I know, I'm
Sure,
not,
that was a decision that was made by the furniture guy. That was due diligence. He got this big old truck with this big old sign on it. And all of a sudden it dawned on him, he doesn't have anywhere to park that thing.
Well, and I mean, it's not the only one like that.
So we're
Is that our
gonna,
fault?
we're gonna change the rules to try to, not change the rules, but flank the rules, in order to accommodate that one situation. I don't think that's the way.
Because the gold guy says he's using his to haul gold.
But if you go back to the intent, and if the intent for these other people other than that person is not to be a sign, okay?
Well, it was intent to be a sign,
Oh, yeah.
because he got his name all
That's why
over
you
that
pay to
truck.
put your sign on the side of your truck.
No, you put the sign on the side of the truck, yes, to advertise your business, but did you
That's-
really put it there
it's
to
a
be
sign.
a? No, did you really park it there to be a sign?
Well, that's
That's
what-
the intent that you got to
Well, how you
determine.
gonna,
Yeah, they do.
how you gonna prove it?
That's my point,
That's
Brian.
Uncle Bob, why he put it
C sounds like.
Uncle Bob's story.
Jerry, if Webster came up and he looked at that truck and you asked him how to define what's that on that truck side
Yeah.
up there, he would probably say that's a sign.
And I agree with Webster,
Taking it back
but
to C.
is that the
That's where they
intent?
might be.
That's different.
Let's walk them through C. If we could, let's, so there's option C, which essentially comes down to if it's used as a sign, it is a sign type of option. And is this one to where kind of y'all are at? Or?
Well, I
the
think
other
this
options?
addresses the ones we're most concerned about. Because you can drive around, Uncle Bob's, storage. He parks that truck in front. Now, he has a storage facility. And that truck will fit inside that storage facility, because I've been in it, inside that storage facility.
yeah.
Why is it parked out front? Because it's for rent, and it's a sign. The furniture places, the mattress places over on Highway 6, they park those vehicles out front as a sign. The gold guy, our favorite person, doesn't even move it. But I see people like Donald Leonetti, and we've got people like the blind man, not meaning
The blinds.
blind visibly.
Okay.
The one that we just bought our blind for the center. He parks his out on 1092, out in front of that little office complex, advertises business.
Well, for staff, we tried to look at it as we heard a lot of concerns about the gold truck, but then we liked Chick-fil-A and where their van was. And so it gets down to, option C is that it looks like a sign, smells like a sign.
And the guy that drives that
It's a sign.
Chick-fil-A drives it to work every day.
And he also
That's
parks
his
in towards the back.
transportation, yeah.
It's not necessarily visible. I mean, if you, when
But
you
it
picture,
is
you want
visible
shaded.
because it's parking back by the major driveway in that center that goes right down in the middle of that center. So everybody sees, so whether he's advertising on the public right of way or on a private street, he's advertising, if you want to say it's advertising.
it's not a plain man.
No, it's got cow prints on it. And so,
I was behind a U.S. Army vehicle the other day.
yeah, we talked about that's exempted in the ordinance. We got that one figured out already.
No, but I mean, there's no question why that U.S. Army truck is painted U.S. Army. It's a recruiter. But they drive that vehicle to that recruiting station. That is their mode of transportation. And that's where I draw the difference is, are you driving it back and forth every day as your modes of transportation? The Geek Squads over in, Best Buy and Sugar Land, those guys, drive that vehicle to and from work. I'm not as concerned about them as I am the big trucks that are literally
I like C.
signs.
that could be
But it's well to be lit up.
Council, I've heard some discussion about whether the truck's being used as part of the business, or whether the truck's being used for transportation of persons, or
Right.
transportation of people associated with the business. And in D, there is an authorization which could be incorporated into C if so desired, or revised and incorporated, that provides anywhere while the vehicle or trailer is being used for the daily transportation functions of the establishment for which the vehicle or trailer is owned, leased, or rented. So that, an exception could be drafted, if so desired, if council desires to adopt C, to
And put
incorporate
that
something.
under C, because I'm in favor of eliminating the 6,000-pound trucks altogether.
You can't do that.
Well, we can make them
Then you, I
hide
mean,
it, or we can make them do, they're not driving 6,000-pound trucks to and from work every day.
the Kroger Center. So the person has the karate shop there, store
Yeah.
there. If he had a vehicle, if he parked it behind his business, it would be on the public right of way. If he parked it in front of his business, it would be seen by the public.
I'm talking about 6,000-pound vehicles now, not,
6,000-pound gross weight is not very much. That's including his carrying weight. That's not just the weight of the vehicle, that's what it carries.
Jerry, aren't we trying to dance around this place on Turtle Creek who doesn't have a place to park there? That huge truck.
Well, it's not just that guy, but we got,
The only one that we're gonna affect,
you
really.
got a nursery school over here. You got all around the city.
The nursery, we were gonna, let me finish. We're talking about this huge truck, 6,000 pounds. This truck is a big sign that doesn't have a place to park right there on the corner of Turtle Creek and Texas Parkway. That's the one that's the one that is really the culprit that I see. Now, all the others are small vans, and
You talking about the furniture store?
But these vans over
They
here.
use it in their business.
They deliver.
The nursery, they carry over 6,000 pounds.
No, it's a delivery truck.
I know, but what I'm saying is he takes those same truck and deliver his furniture.
That's
and bring
fine.
it back.
I'm not opposed to that. But what happens when he's not doing it? What on Saturday and Sunday?
Do you want
On
him to take it
Sundays,
home?
You can't put it on the street.
We're not in the business of teaching him how to do his business well or make good business decisions. What we're trying to do is we're trying to develop ordinances and governance that's going to benefit the community. One of the areas that has been here since 2005 is try to make sure the Texas Parkway looks good. And that big old truck up there with a sign is not that.
well, remember, we just had one that we dealt with was an ambulance. And the only reason we got them to move it out of their driveway at their house was that it exceeded the weight. Otherwise, they could be parking that ambulance in the driveway of their home on Glen Lakes today.
But that wasn't
That's on a different
6,000, it
ordinance.
was 10,000 pounds.
Well, but the only way we enforced it was on the weight.
No, just 6,000 pounds, it seems kind of low.
What,
My excursion weighs more than 6,000 pounds.
that's right. What,
Well, let's address the weight more than the issue then.
along the right-of-ways of Highway 6, what is the typical setback of the building from the right-of-way?
It varies, but, when you factor in the ditches or, those types of drainage easements, it can be between
So is-
50 and 100 feet back from the
Is it a
right-of-way.
way that we can come up and restrict that they have to park them nearest that building versus in the closest to the right-of-way? Get them further away from the right-of-way as possible. And there's got to be some magical number out there that we can use.
What would you do with the gold truck?
He'll have to park it in front of his store versus out on Highway 6.
The difference in that is from me to Bill Atkinson. That's not acceptable.
But that's more equitable than saying just carte blanche and say people can't do that.
We did discuss that quite a bit in the past 2 weeks, and I think our challenge was in a distinction between a smaller area such as the one that you're describing and a large one such as a major tenant like the Kroger Shopping Center.
What is the Kroger Shopping
So
Center?
there's so many varies. We did discuss putting a 150,
So if it's not 100 feet away,
200,
they got to park it
250.
behind.
And then,
No, but I think the difference was when that Brick's Burger used to be there, he would take that and park it by either Chick-fil-A or Walgreens. That was a different issue.
Or you parked it on the
that was a
corner.
different
On the
issue,
corner
but
from Blockbuster.
But then he did move his truck to where it was on his premises, so it was no longer regulated from the city standpoint as an off-premises sign, but it was on premises. His business front faces the side of his the side of his building faces Highway 6. One side of his building faces Highway 6. The back of his building is very visible from the public right-of-way.
Well, how do other people address this? You don't see this in Sugar Land.
We have some,
You don't see, no, you don't see this all up and down Highway 6
we have
on
Sugar Land's
Land.
ordinance in here,
And what does it
and
say?
that goes to the purpose of the sign.
Carolina is the same.
Serve the same or similar purpose of a permanent or portable sign. It's, they define the type of sign that
They
it serves.
prohibit it
but-
totally. Why you don't see it?
Would you say it, please, out?
Certainly, yeah, and it's very short. And this is, I would say this is the spirit of the current ordinance that we currently utilize. Signs displayed or used upon vehicles or trailers unless the vehicle or trailer is permanently stationed or regularly used at a fixed location to serve the same or similar purpose of a permanent or portable sign. So if it's looking like a monument sign, and
Walk
a
like a
panel
duck,
truck
talk like
is
a duck,
similar
and
to that.
But if it's used for that business,
It didn't say it didn't use, like, you gonna add that to that,
no,
Mary?
I'm asking her,
It does not state that. So it's my opinion that every sign on a truck serves a purpose of advertising that
What they pay
business
for it for.
to a greater or lesser degree. There's some signs that are across the street on some trucks that I can't view from the street because they're so small. When a sign becomes so small as to be not visible from the public right-of-way, it's probably not serving a purpose of a monument sign or
Right.
wall signage. It's no longer like that when it's too small. If it's positioned far away from the business and up against the right-of-way, it's looking more like a sign. If there's not much parking lot to work with, there may be no way it can park without serving the purpose of a sign. And in those circumstances, we have prosecuted those.
So similar to what you talked about for Brick Burgers, Rocky Creek Storage, they have parking facing their business, which is the side, but you see that from Highway 6. So under this, would that be prosecuted?
It'd be treated as a sign.
Well, they only have like 6 or 7 parking spaces. Everything else is for people to park in front of their.
Right, this ordinance is not forgiving for businesses that have small areas for parking. How a business such as that could rectify the situation is make their sign so small as to not draw attention to it.
They do? That's what it's for, is.
They rent it.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
relocate
like
to make the
Bob's.
sign smaller.
Bob can pull his inside his units, because that's the way people unload their units. They drive straight down the middle of his units, and he can put it inside, but he leaves it outside facing Cartwright Road for a purpose. But he's got plenty of room. He's even got room behind one of his storage units that's outside.
Bob's fortunate.
But I bet they do too. Rocky Creek does too. Got it behind it.
Just a quick point of clarification. Option A does include the 100-foot right-of-way affirmative defense for defendants. So it does state that if a vehicle is parked 100 feet from the right-of-way of a thoroughfare that's a major arterial state highway or tollway, it would not be considered a vehicle sign if it's parked 100 feet.
Yeah, I
So
like
think
that.
that was the...
You making accommodations? Let's try not to make accommodations just for one specific person or business.
Well, I don't think, my intent is not to accommodate that one business. You know, my intent is to accommodate those other businesses that got the same problem, that can't park anywhere else. And you know, and that's what we need to do in terms of applying this. You know, I don't know what kind of business it is, or how strong it is, or how long it will last. You know, it kind of depends on what the clientele is. But on the other hand, if we want to attract business to this city, we need to really think about what it is we're doing. at the same time, you need to educate some shopping owner people so people don't rent these places and find out they can't have these vehicles. So it's not, my conversation is not just about trying to allow them to have some, or trying to make it equitable in the long run for everybody if they have a truck like this. You know, I mean, you mentioned Leonetti's, but if you know, from the public right-of-way, and it's not his vehicle, but there's a large truck just like the one at the Gold Truck that's parked right there, you know? Saw it today.
Well, it's probably not his.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's not his, because you didn't
allow unloading and loading.
No, it wasn't loading and unloading, it was parked. You know, but, no, it's not his, but there are other businesses there, it's one of the other businesses, you know?
I'd like a specific legal opinion or explain this sentence. It's under option D, the last sentence. Anywhere while the vehicle or trailer is being utilized for the daily transportation functions of the business. What does being utilized mean? Is that while you're physically going in and out of the vehicle, or the fact that that vehicle is used for transportation on a daily basis?
Some examples of what that was meant to address: if a business utilizes a vehicle and goes to Lowe's to buy something at Lowe's, they can transport themselves in the vehicle to Lowe's, go into Lowe's, make the purchase.
Okay, and you're talking about at a location other than their own. Now, that's where I'm seeing a difference in the way that sentence is written on option D, where it says anywhere, and option A, where it says anywhere other than the premises of the business.
Right.
So does option D mean anywhere, including their own business?
Correct.
If it is used for daily transportation?
Correct, and that was try to grasp the sentiment of...
They're trying to do the daycare vans?
If it's, yes, the daycare vans and the businesses that continually use their vehicles for carrying out the functions of their business.
Then my question is, why don't we have it that way, where it says anywhere as the last item of option A? Because it honestly is what we're trying to do. We're trying to do all these other things on option A, to put it on the rear if there's a rear, put it on the side if there's no rear, put it in the front if it's at least 100 feet away if there's no rear or side. But if you put anywhere under item E, that even allows it on the front if it's used for daily transportation. But the way A is written right now, it can't, because it says other than the premises.
Let me ask you something. I know that FCCSA regulates all of the shopping centers that are along Highway 6 that's in there. I bet they don't allow trucks. Sienna controls the entrance at Sienna Parkway, and that, I bet they don't allow trucks. I would imagine Riverstone controls that shopping center at the entrance of Riverstone. I bet they don't allow trucks. We need to find that out, because all that, because you never see trucks there. The reason I say that, you only see them at places that are not regulated by some other entity. We don't allow them in the the HOAs don't even allow them in the subdivisions.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we so particular to allow them in these little spots that get junked up when other cities don't either? What is wrong with us trying to keep our streets nice looking? Why is it that we are so concerned about moving these big old trucks to somewhere else? We don't allow people to drive their 18-wheelers into their neighborhood for a reason. They got to park them somewhere. I don't care where they park them.
Well, Mayor, but I go back to the premise again. Where do you make the distinction between a child care bus with a sign on it that's parked right on the street and these? Where do you make the distinction? I'm all for cleaning up things, but I want to be fair to folk.
And I don't
that.
think I fully addressed Councilmember Marshall's question. One of the challenges, if we include when being used in the course of the business or transporting to and from the business, that will be an argument that's continually raised, that I do use this truck to deliver hamburgers. And, of course, in these criminal prosecutions, we're held to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is quite a challenge to overcome when we put in those type of exceptions. We've put those out here for purposes of discussion, but those do create a challenge for prosecution, whether it's a furniture truck that clearly is used for delivery of furniture, or a hamburger truck that is questionable whether it's used for the delivery of hamburgers, but it's still up to the state to prove that's case in chief. So
Carl
those type of-
Jr.'s has that big old mobile unit.
Really nice thing, yeah.
They don't park it behind Carl Jr.'s. They take it somewhere. They only pull it out when they needed it, like for Don's event and stuff, so.
Isn't,
You know, they find a place to put it.
So by what you're saying, D is would be hard to.
Deal is that what I see is, and I'm still zeroing in on this particular furniture truck that's over 6,000 pounds, parked in a driveway that you can barely maneuver through there anyway. To me, it's undersized. Also, I'm considering the fact that ongoing, it has been an issue that there are things that need to be done on Texas Parkway to make things right, make it look better. And the city should be more involved in that. I will not vote for anything that will put that big old sign up there in front of that.
What is the largest gross vehicular weight personal vehicle? That's what Bobby's concern is. What is, I mean,
Mine's the heaviest one.
Okay, so what is the gross vehicular weight of that vehicle?
Rough numbers, but you're probably looking around 10 grand. On that.
10,000?
Something like an F-250, 10, 12 grand would be.
Which one?
No, I think my Excursion is the
I'm talking
heaviest
about,
one.
what is the personal vehicle? Be a Excursion or whatever. I want to know what the largest.
Excursion is just under 4 tons.
Excuse me, PD is enforcing our heavy weight.
So what is it?
So let's let,
I know.
We had situations where we had the tractor trailers parked in everyone's in driveways, and I believe that was 9,000 on the tractor trailer,
At a fixed location.
if I'm not mistaken.
95.
9,000?
Yeah.
So I think 9,000 is the lowest allowed in the neighborhood here in Missouri City, if I'm not mistaken.
And that's more than yours, right?
you
I don't have a problem in raising it to 9,000 pounds, if that's what it is. That'll eliminate that truck and all the big trucks. And would allow,
See, all the ambulances are 10,000 and above.
You mean eliminate which truck?
Except for those
Eliminate what truck?
vans.
the big trucks, the box trucks.
No, those trucks don't weigh that much, man.
Yeah, it's this one here.
They don't weigh that much. They might weigh 6,500 pounds.
Yeah.
they only weigh when it's, merchandise is in it, that's the weight.
They don't weigh
Not
that
the
much.
load, it's flat. It just has the box. I know, I'm with you.
I understand the sign, I just
Which one
want
would
to
it
be
be
fair.
Which one, which of these 4 options?
We want commerce on Texas Park. We want it everywhere. But we are obligated to the citizens. We're going to make an exception for one area, for one person.
No, if we're gonna apply that, we're gonna apply it to everybody that has a vehicle that large and has a sign, not just the people with those type of trucks. I assure you, that lady that opened that furniture store, and I met her and talked, I don't think it ever crossed her mind about there's nowhere else to park that truck.
Nowhere else to park it on that premise.
Yeah,
There are other places to park it now.
Yeah.
Across the street is not that bad.
Ain't nothing across the street but an empty field.
No, there's a service station right down the street there. She might can work something out with it. I'm just doing something. But the deal is you're gonna try to put an ordinance that says you can put this big old truck up here with this big sign up here.
Guys, we're not winning those cases anyway. Okay? I mean, just be honest about it.
No, you can't.
Carolina tell you.
They're winning it, because I don't
That's
see,
what I'm about to say. Sugar Land seems to be doing all right over there.
I don't see any vehicles.
Well, in Missouri City, what's our record in Missouri City? Are we winning all those cases?
We've not had many of those, to be honest. We currently have one that has not made it to trial, so I can't comment on that one. There was one on Texas Parkway that went to a jury, and the jury found not guilty on that. I don't know if Joyce or Gary can recall any other ones.
Since we opened that up, why did they find them not guilty?
We don't.
So we got no teeth in this
I
ordinance.
do know, and let me just say, this is anecdotal, so I don't think it's that instructive, but in some...
It's not going to help us, you mean, with the comment is not going to help us here?
There was a sentiment that they did not want to impair a business that's trying to function. So that has been a sentiment. We've also successfully used these to prosecute in residential areas.
Could I make a suggestion? We have a citywide HOA meeting coming up. What day do we decide it on?
It's like the 18th of July.
I want to know what the citizens of Missouri City want. Okay? Let's let those HOAs tell us what they want. They live here. Okay? Let's put this off until we have the HOA meetings, and let's have representatives from those HOAs in the city tell us, are they tired of seeing that, or do they want to see it? And let us make the decision for the citizens. We're up here to represent them. If they don't want to see it, then we ought to listen to them and figure out how to stop it. If Sugar Land's been successful with it, apparently they listen to somebody. We need to. If they don't have a problem with it, they got to live with it. But let's let that be one of the issues we talk about. We've used those HOAs before to talk about some of the changes that we've made. Garbage cans, junk cars, high grass, all those major items that they came to us and said, we want you to get tougher on. I think we utilize them once again. If they don't show up, I can't help that. Let's encourage those representatives from all those HOAs to send a representative, and let's talk about it at that meeting. It's not that far off. We don't have, let's delay taking any action on this until we get some input from the citizens.
Now, as an alternative to that, Mayor and Council, we could certainly adopt this ordinance with all of the changes that you desire, retain our current vehicle ordinance so as to move forward with these multitude of other provisions,
That's fine.
and keep what we're currently utilizing. None of these amendments that the current...
Do I have a problem with that?
And bring it back in late July or
Or
August.
alternatively, the whole thing could be postponed as
Well, I have
well.
no problem, except we keep mentioning Sugar Land, that they're not having a problem. I would still like to hear how they are addressing daycare vans that are in front of their businesses as well.
I don't see them.
I've seen them.
They're there, Ellen.
It's just they're not a big, you gotta get out, I don't consider them a big huge sign, it's just got the name on the door.
They're not panel trucks.
Yeah, they're not panel trucks, they're just vans.
They're newer model.
Buses.
Will we hurt anything by just delaying the whole thing rather than using?
No, I just wanted to give that as an
I will
alternative.
caution that we do have businesses that have been
We're waiting
monitoring
for 'em.
the progress of the sign ordinance and have been delaying submission of applications based on the timing.
Based
That'll
on
put it off until
The
August.
ordinance.
On vehicles?
No, on the sign ordinance.
Oh, and I think that's what you're saying,
If we
is
post-
we have the whole sign ordinance
So,
deal that we're voting on
Jennifer, I'm
tonight.
back to my
Bring
original
this back
question.
and
Have
amend
there
it in
been any
August.
changes since first reading of my motion at first reading on all the other signs other than vehicle signs?
There's been some non-substantive changes to definitions and some language throughout the ordinance. One substantive change that staff did add to this ordinance is an effective date, that the sign ordinance would not become effective, even that kind of contradicts what I just said, but an effective date of August 1st.
But those businesses you're talking about that are waiting for us to make a decision don't have anything to do with vehicles.
Nothing to do with vehicles,
So can we
some of the other...
adopt all of it except the vehicle piece?
Well, then can I
Include
make a
the
motion?
No, because there are some other things that need to be discussed, okay, about this ordinance before we...
Okay, but I'm just saying, well, let's take the...
Let's just get a, you gonna make a
vehicle
motion,
piece
get a
out.
motion, a second.
I'm making a motion to adopt the sign regulations based on the changes made at first reading by council,
And including the
except
effective...
for vehicle signs.
Excluding
vehicle signs.
If I may, though, I just wanted to point out a few items that are in, or changes that have been made.
There's a motion on the floor.
But
I apologize. I just wanted to clarify just a few items that have been made, or changes that have been made.
Let us get the second, and you can stay
I
with that.
second that. And you realize we're only talking about, we're not going to talk about the changes, we're going to talk about those. This is, we're going to take the vehicular piece out.
Okay.
Now talk about the rest of
We're
it.
going to keep the vehicular as it is today.
As it is today.
And make all the
Right.
other changes as adopted last.
And discuss those that Jerry wants to talk about that are in.
But she may cover some of them.
That was my motion.
Okay.
And
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Huh?
No, we still have discussion on the floor.
Oh, okay. By staff.
Okay. One of those changes
Your
was
other changes.
regarding window signs.
Yes.
As you recall, on first reading, we added a non-residential window signs. And I just want to let y'all know is what that could possibly do is allow, let's say, a resident to include 25% of signage, let's say it's 100 square, or the aggregate window area is, let's say, 100 or 400 square feet. They could have 25% in each window. So it could be, let's say, 100 square feet in each window.
Of non-commercial.
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 So it would be non-commercial messages in residential areas. But just to let you know, it could be, they could include signage, they could have all of their signage on one window in a residential area, just so you know that that's what that change is.
And that's not really a change per se,
Not per-
because that is
right.
under the current ordinance.
Correct.
We don't have architectural standards in terms of residential buildings, but all window signs are exempt with the 25% threshold, whether it's residential or commercial.
I would think that many of the HOAs would have deed restrictions that would preclude that to happen.
Except if it's free speech, it's a different issue.
Okay.
I think he has a good point. I'm convinced of that. Would you say that again?
Well, that would be a lot of signage in a residential area. If one has 400 square feet of available window, that would be 100 square feet of area in a residential area covered with
Is that a
windows.
single window or total windows?
They're allowed 25% of the aggregate.
Correct.
Under this draft, although. that
Counting
could be
every window in the
revised.
house.
So, that could be a spirit sign that's 25% of the size of each window, maybe one for the band, one for the football, one for the cheerleaders. Just to try to give you a visual of what that could potentially look at. But yes, as Councilmember Emery said, that is a matter that could be handled by HOA restrictions and deed restrictions if such exist.
Do we have to rush through this? What's the hurry on this?
Well, she said
We
we
got
had some
businesses
businesses
waiting.
that are waiting.
But I don't,
But that has something to do with
I
the
could
truck.
ask you what businesses, and we can dwell into, I mean, this is a real serious, some decisions to be made on
This
that.
is next to the garbage.
Hush up. But if I could, please, if we increase the window signage, and yet somebody does not use all of the wall signage, what happens?
If they increase their window signage, based on this ordinance as written, beyond 25% of their aggregate window area, that window signage would be calculated with the wall signage. So for example, their wall signage would decrease, and they could use their window signage would effectively become part of their wall signage if it's over 25% as written. So that's kind of an exception to the 25% rule. Currently, our ordinance requires that everyone basically have just 25%. But with this ordinance, what we've done is we've included exceptions, one for the movie theater poster signs and another for window signage beyond 25%, provided that that window signage is included as wall signage, or within the calculation of wall
But
signage.
also for those people who have non-conforming uses today and who may not be compliant with the current zoning ordinance, those people will now be compliant.
Well, if it's non-conforming, you mean in terms of window signage?
Yeah.
Window signage
And they
today
don't have a wall sign.
is 25%
But let me
today.
clarify though too, because this ordinance defines clearer what window signage is. Under the current ordinance, window signage is only anything that's inside of the window area, the glass area that's attached to the window. And so this ordinance would open that definition up, and anything that's applied to that glass area, outside, inside, would be considered window signage. And so some of the existing uses that we have today that are doing that, placing it on the outside, would fall under
I'm talking about
that
on the
window
inside.
signage requirement.
I'm talking about one that happened recent, that had handmade signs that covered all of the windows. Do not have a wall sign. Did reduce their signage, but now if we change this and they don't have wall, now they can go back and increase it to, and fill up the window again.
That's what this would, within what they would be allotted for a wall sign. So whatever total square footage area that they would have for that wall sign, they wouldn't be able to exceed those limitations. So if it could have the effect of filling
It
up
could have the
a
effect of
glass
covering
area,
up the
yes.
windows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your concern about
Yeah.
residential?
And I think we should keep with the
About having signage
25%.
in residential.
Just like commercial.
And keep the wall signs allotment separate like we had before.
We should be.
That looks worse than the trucks with signs.
We should be.
Joyce, your original concern here was that we've opened this up to non-commercial messages in residential, and so it's following under the same rules of the 25%. Can't we put a higher or a lower percentage on residential? Or even a maximum square footage?
You can't limit the number of signs in a residential window?
You can.
That's how
Yeah.
you need to do it.
That's what I'm saying.
Not 25% of the aggregate. I'm sitting here thinking,
No,
I've
let's
got
limit it to,
500 square feet of windows in my house. That means I can have,
How many people are doing
well, we're not talking, well, why don't we limit it to 6 or 9 square feet or something like that? I mean, you're talking of, a 2 foot, by 3 foot spirit signs,
that is if they were in the window. Most
In the
people
window.
put those out in the front yard
Yeah,
so
but
you
I'm
can see
just-
them.
I'm just saying a poster, a poster.
You can certainly limit it by window, you can certainly limit
I'd like to
it.
put it by maximum square footage, rather than percentage of windows. Who knows how many windows they have? I think something like 8 square feet or something, 6 or 8 at the most.
I think for warning signs, it's 4,
Again, Mayor,
3.
2 by 3.
as the vehicle that we had talked about, now we have even more concerns, and I think we need.
Right, and I'm glad she
push this
pointed
back.
that out, because we opened it up to residential.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, what is that size?
This is 6 square feet.
Okay.
It's good to be found on.
That's how this was drafted.
And that's why
I
we
might not-
ought to limit it.
That's 9 square feet. Just to give you an idea of how big it is.
Well, I think
I had
6
to hunt all
sounds
over
good.
the building for this.
6
This is the
sounds
only
good
thing I
for
could find
resident.
I could do 9 square feet with.
Well, why don't we put 6 square feet into our ordinance under residential for window signs, maximum?
have a problem
We
with
don't
that.
mind it getting into residential where we haven't allowed it before, but let's not let them go overboard. I can put my U of H sign in my window. One's good enough for me.
Bunch of
Oh,
aggies.
wait, I'm gonna have to change it to Charleston State.
You have a permit for your flag? How about your U of H flag you're flying in your front yard, okay?
Was it, but that was your other concern?
Yes.
Was there anything else?
The other one was just to point out that we have,
That's actually addressed
kind
in
of
here,
what
too.
Councilmember Wyatt was stating, we do have those exceptions for the 25%, in case y'all want to look at
In
that.
commercial.
In commercial, correct.
Is
Which allow an
anybody
increase
else
to the
concerned about the
25%
residential piece? Let's put it to bed.
So,
By the way, I like it 6
Maximum
square feet.
6 square feet in a residential window.
And I will say on the commercial, if you do want to take out going over the 25%, the initial business partners that we met with were okay with what we have currently in place with the maximum at 25%, with the understanding that it's done for the aggregate window area and not per individual window frame. So that's still consistent with
Yeah, as long as it stays
what they
consistent
desire.
with what we have, but I just hate to see us end up with a
I think we've
whole
actually been able to move past this.
window full of stuff
Right.
that people just start writing and sticking up there, that looks worse than any sign on any truck, and now we legalize it and let them do more of it. Now they can do all the windows.
So do I need to amend my motion to include that residential 6-foot maximum?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If you so desire.
I do.
Are there any other changes?
You're saying resident 6 foot
6
maximum?
square foot
Maximum.
maximum window sign in residential.
In a residence.
What he just showed you.
In a window.
2-foot window sign.
In a window.
But I can have one in each window.
No, no, we're talking about 6
6
square
square foot
feet total
maximum per
in a
resident.
window. You can put them in the front yard, but in a window.
And if the sign say, "In God we trust," I can only have one.
Most of those
That
are
would be a
on.
non-commercial message.
That's a non-commercial.
Non-commercial message.
What we saying, 1 6-foot commercial sign?
No.
No, no.
No, a residential
No more than
sign,
6
no more
square
than
feet.
whatever. So even if you have 10 windows, talking about.
One sign.
Well, we're talking 6 square
One
feet
sign
total. You
at-
could have 2
yeah.
little ones.
Two little ones, you know.
Or one big one, but 6
2
square
3x2s or,
feet.
yeah,
That was 9 square feet, that's 6, so that's good.
yeah. Which we're saying most of these kids that are in Little League and stuff.
Yeah, they have
They've
sport
got
nights
those
and
little,
Probably get 2 of those.
yeah, you can get 2 of those in a window.
cheerleader and.
But most of them have them outside where people can see
Yeah.
them anyway.
Grab parents,
Yeah.
so.
All right, are there any other changes?
Anything else?
So we're going back to what we originally had in the ordinance for the,
For window signs.
okay.
Is that part of the motion, to take that out?
What?
The
If
window
he-
signs?
If the. if
No,
the-
what I changed on window signs was
It would change.
residential.
So your answer to her is yes.
That's not part of the motion.
No, that is part of the motion.
If I could
is
clarify, there are
residential.
2 separate
They're not
issues, I
changing
think,
it.
that are being discussed that are different from the ordinance that you
Right.
have before you. The residential component, which what I've heard is to limit residential to 6 square feet, non-commercial message, window signage. The other issue is, there are now 2 exceptions in which a business in a commercial area can exceed the 25% rule. And as I understand it, Councilmember Wyatt's recommendation is to remove the first one of those, which allows business to display in excess of 25% if they're not utilizing their full amount of wall signage, up to the amount of wall signage that they are not utilizing. So for example, just to put that in perspective, if a business has 50 square feet of wall signage and it elects not to put that up, it can put 25% of window signage up plus the.
Well, no.
No.
The 25%, the entire area of the
Right.
window
Right.
signage would be calculated as wall signs.
Right.
So whatever that entire area of window signage is.
So that would potentially exceed 25% window coverage in
Right, but
commercial
it wouldn't
areas.
just be the
In
surplus
other words,
over
we're
the
keeping what we
25%.
have, basically.
Okay,
And
removing
basically
that,
what I understand, the businesses are not objecting to that.
Right.
and removing that one exception that's in the ordinance.
Fine.
Do you accept that as the move? Second, do you accept that?
There's one other issue that was discussed last time that was not part of the motion, so it's not part of the ordinance, but you do have a memo providing you potential language,
I mean,
and
it
that is
wasn't
this.
part of my motion last.
It was not part of it. It's the shopping center tenant notification.
Yeah, we
Issue.
did talk about that.
We did talk about it. It was not part of the motion, so what we did at staff is to prepare some language if council so desires to include that in the motion. If council desires to not include
think
that at
that's
this time.
important.
Yes, include that as well.
Second? All right with that?
Yes.
Because that will make it fair for these people with these trucks in the future, because now they can't rent those places, hopefully, and if they
They
did.
know about it before they.
And then if they do, you not only you can go after that person, you can also go after the tenant. I mean, the owner, property owner.
Okay. All right, we're clear now? Got a motion, second? With all the
Been moved
changes?
and second.
All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I didn't vote for it.
I didn't either.
And the only reason I mind is very ceremonial. I'm gonna wait till he comes back. On the truck deal.
So that was 5-2.
Yeah, we'll have the truck, we'll figure out some way to.
Okay.
To figure out how to, at the citywide HOA meeting to have.
There was a
pick-
second
Pick
final
your
reading, by
choice.
the way.
Yeah. But
I think
so
you're
the
gonna-
amendment will come back in August for consideration.
I think with the citizen, you need a graphic demonstration.
For that.
It will be, yeah, that's gonna, we'll have to put our minds together and figure out how
Vote
to
against it.
make it to where it's making choices.
But for clarification, this was the second and final reading, and it did pass, with the exception of the vehicle piece, which is the only thing that will come back.
Correct.
The city staff will continue to enforce the existing vehicle signage in our
Right.
current ordinance until that time period.
All right, item 7A2.
An ordinance of the City of Missouri City, Texas, amending regulations in PD Plan Development District Number 62, consisting of an approximate 28-acre tract of land, describing said 28-acre tract of land, regulating and restricting the use, size, height, and density of buildings, the size of yards, and type of use within such PD Plan Development District, amending the zoning district map of the City of Missouri City as adopted by ordinance number 0811 on January 19, 1981, as amended, repealing ordinance number 0112, adopted on February 7, 2011, providing a penalty, providing for severability, and containing other provisions relating to the subject.
And this is the second and final reading of this ordinance.
I move approval of this with option 1 included.
Is that your second?
Yeah.
And that language has been added to the ordinance, the exact dimensions and everything of the wall signage all approved last time.
But option 1 does not include any wording, correct?
No lettering,
Pictures
just
only.
graphics. Yes, sir.
What we agreed to. All right, then a motion by Councilman Marshall, second by Councilman Emery. All those in favor? Motion carried. Item 7B1.
Thanks, Travis.
An ordinance of the City of Missouri City, Texas, continuing Article 7 of Chapter 74 of Missouri City Code, continuing the rules and regulations pertaining to the standards of care for certain elementary age recreation programs operated by the City of Missouri City, repealing all other ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for severability.
Move to adopt.
Second and final reading, motion by Mayor Pro Tem Wyatt, second by Councilman Marshall. All those in favor? Yeah. Motion carries. Item B, 7B2.
An ordinance of the City of Missouri City, Texas, approving and adopting the City of Missouri City, Texas general budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2012 and ending June 30, 2013, making appropriations for the city for such fiscal year as reflected in said budget, making certain findings and containing certain provisions relating to the subject.
Mayor and council,
Yes.
before we move any further, we'd like to review what we've done to date. We've got the proposed FY 2013 budget. First screen shows the base budget that was submitted to the city secretary on June 1st, and any adjustments would be to that budget. So just to review, general fund revenues would be $31,419,440, expenditures $31,902,653, with a net revenues over expenditures of $483,213. The tax rate based on this budget is set at 54.54571. Had a pointer, but with the INS rate, the rate that goes up to serve the debt rate, the debt service that we have. General fund summary, overall total preliminary general fund budget for 2013 decreased by $230,000. Largest expenditures was for fuel, oil, and lubricants. Revenues projected conservative with an overall increase of 0.7% over FY 2012. And property taxes are estimated $120,000 more than last year. There are two proposed new revenue sources, solid waste franchise fee, which is contemplated to be implemented on commercial and residential users. The fee is projected to be 5% of the service, which is charged by the provider and then submitted to the city. This is estimated to bring in $376,000. The other revenue would be from emergency response fees, which is charged for an expenditure of public safety responses to accidents, mainly hazmat type of thing, foams and things like that. The highlights of the 13 budget is property tax rates prepared without the certified values. We will get those end of July. Current tax rate is 52.84, as I said before, and this proposed is 54.57.1. An alternate tax option would be that the current rate could stay the same at the current rate at 52.84, by keeping the debt service rate the same as it is today, which is 0.18 cents, so 68 or something like that. What that would do would be that we would just eat into the debt service fund balance. That fund balance, if we did that, would still yield $3.9 million left, which is something like 46% of our annual debt service.
Right.
So it's not, I don't think the rating agency is going to be bad to that. Our concern, staff's concern is time after time after time, as it is yours, but that's our concern.
Can't do it every year.
Can't do it every year.
But how many years have we done this? This will be the fourth in a year?
It's our second.
We've done, this is our second year.
No.
In terms of the fund balance?
Fund balance.
No, this is debt service.
Debt service, that's different.
This is a debt service fund.
But at the same time, when we get the effective tax rate, we could apply that and apply that to the debt service if it is different.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't forget that we can do that. But I do recommend that we reduce the fund balance to a level that we did it last year, and I encourage that those funds be used for salary increases and adjustments for our employees. I think 25% is kind of hefty.
It
And
is.
I think last year we went to, 21%, 20%?
I think that's right. I don't have that offhand.
Yeah, it was
There was
20 point something.
Yes.
And the forecast is 25.4, I believe, for the year, in the year.
That's right.
And I do that in the form of a motion, but at the same time, we keep asking our people to do more for less. We have to reward our people. We have to stay in a position of being competitive and not be a training ground for our people to go somewhere else. And so we really seriously need to look at doing that.
Yeah, because, Wes, go back. I want you to go all the way back to, keep going. We're going to come back in, right, now, let's see. Now go back. I want us to, oh, go big. That 483. Now I want you to go forward. Keep going. Keep going. Right there. 483 plus, if we didn't find that 376,
It'd be more.
we're looking at almost $1 million. It's only because of that $376,000 other source we found right there that we're not talking about almost $1 million deficit. We can't do that every year. We can't come up with $376,000 every year either. New. I know. I'm just doing it.
Let's clarify something. We got a deficit when we go past zero.
Right.
Okay? When we got a 25% ending balance, we could take care of this $483,000 up front.
Right.
Okay?
But I'm just saying, we can't continue to eat that way. Yeah.
We have no deficit.
Right.
I won't get out in the streets that we have a deficit.
No.
And we're not passing a deficit budget.
No, we don't. We just, what I'm just pointing out, we can't continue to eat away at that.
We cannot continue to do that, but
Take it from the general fund.
if you go back to the slide that Wes had presented at one time to show the years, we went into retreat right when the economy started to go south. Okay, and we've done that since 2008.
Right.
There are years that we didn't even go to the effective tax rate, okay? And that's the position and things that we got to start explaining to our public.
That's what I meant by the force, yeah.
Right.
We need more police officers.
Yes, we
You know,
do.
and it takes money to do that. But we cannot keep holding back. But at the same time, if we do anything with the tax rate, we need to look at adjusting our debt service, because we're running out of the available money. If we're going to turn around and ask people for another authorization in 2013 for a lot of heavy needs that need to be taken care of, we're going to have to be in position to make sure that that's funded where we can do that.
That's right.
And the only way that can be done is that it goes back to the citizens.
Exactly. I did have a few more slides here just to show you. You saw this one, which is the other night. Sorry about
Yeah.
that. I looked too close to the screen. Somebody told me I was trying to climb in there. But, yeah, the cities that we're concerned about, I suppose, Pearland and in Stafford and Sugar Land and their tax rates. They also get, Pearland gets $19 million in sales tax. Sugar Land gets $39 million, Stafford gets 13, and we get 6.
That's right.
So
They got the
that's
cash
just something-
cows, we don't.
It may not be so what, but it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Capital improvement program, just want to kind of highly go over that. It was included in the budget document that was presented. This still would we still would issue 1.4 in GO if that's approved. The other projects that we're talking about is in public safety, in the fire station and the fire engine. Those are reimbursed in total from Sienna. Other is a drainage, that's the 950 for Cangelosi, and Willow Water Hole and Stafford Run. Transportation projects are here. There's, as you can see them there, Lexington Extension. Well, actually, it's going to be paid all by the county, right? Lexington.
Correct.
And then park and recreation, park improvements, 200,000, park beautification, 100,000, city center. We have some equipment that we put in there, recreation and tennis center equipment, 25,000. Facilities, this landscape improvement project, and then in utilities, he's got some projects there, Mustang Bayou wastewater treatment of 368,000. And service area water line, 180,000, and service water treatment plant, not quite sure, $3 million. That's all I have.
And that will basically take us through our available capital funds, available.
I'm sorry, could you
without
say?
selling another, going out for another bond issue.
Correct.
That'll pretty much take us through.
Right, those are all included there except for that 1.4 that we would do, and that's, we still have $28 million left of the.
And on the Cangelosi watershed, I hope that we're gonna be looking at some other ways in order to generate some money in that watershed, other than just from bonds. And that's more of a city manager question than.
I'm sure he'll work.
I know you just count the money, but.
But there was something that you mentioned as far as debt. The transportation projects, quite a bit of that also is Metro funds.
Right.
And so we made sure that we fully leveraged our Metro funds in relation to these, quite a bit of our capital projects on the transportation side.
And so the amendment would be to adjust this budget at the end fund balance to 21%. And any money left over that to be used in a contingency for salaries and salary adjustments.
Okay.
Can I get a second?
No, I'll second it.
And just for discussion, also, we presented you with some other cuts, possible cuts, if you so desired. And that's, it was on there.
Those cuts, from what I see, if reducing the fund balance, remove those cuts. I mean, some of these kind of bothered me in the sense that, the only substantial amount of money out of the whole deal came out of public service and out of public safety, which kind of, and in terms of uniform costs, you know, unless you're telling me we're paying too much for uniform, and that includes cleaning? Does that include laundry and cleaning and what have you? I think as long as we got a sufficient balance, you know, I don't think we ought to be nickel and diming these employees to death.
Well, I think those department heads heard clearly that they need to be diligent in what they do. I think they need to make those decisions. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Can we all give a personal opinion?
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay.
sure you can.
And incidentally, Jerry, I think that was a very good motion, and it's going to help out considerably. But what I saw in the discussion was that there were some concerns as to whether departments are running efficiently, and that's not an indictment on the department heads, but that's one of the jobs of council. And I think what we just can't throw that away. I think we ought to at least entertain that.
But that should be.
But I'm not finished.
Okay.
I'm not finished. I think we at least ought to entertain that. We're making some great strides here, but we should always try to be as efficient as possible.
Sure.
And in sitting in a room and decisions are made just by everybody in that room, sometimes it's not good enough. As smart as we are and as learned as this group is, we ought to consider going outside to find out if we are doing the right thing and are we operating under the best standards.
And that's a discussion, as I told you, we should have with the city manager.
This is not a debate, this is my
It's
opinion.
not a debate, but I'm just adding to it, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but that's the man we hold accountable. That's who we ought to be having that conversation
And I
with.
thought we had agreed to that
We did
the other
agree.
night, that
We did
there would
agree.
be some study that's done
Yeah.
on efficiencies
It's particularly in relation to municipal
or
court.
municipal court, that's right.
Well, I didn't want this to just let this go as saying we've solved all the problems, we through with this, and we're
no.
going to revisit this again. And that's what I kind of felt
No,
when the
I
motion
think,
was made.
no, Don, I think we're going to move forward with looking at some efficiency studies to see if we can continue to improve.
And that's something
Revenue.
that's something Missouri City has done in the past, and that will continue to. I know code enforcement, Alan Mueller, I can't remember if it was before he was interim or while he was interim, did a report on code enforcement in regards to finding areas of where they could be more effective. And so it's something, that will continue. Municipal court's the next one lined up, but I think you'll see that continually through all the departments, as far as where are there opportunities to increase our effectiveness with those departments.
I'm just going to make a comment. I think if you look at the budget that staff, provided us, I think they've gone through, some probably head-knocking exercises as to where's the best place that we can have efficiency. So I don't think that they've provided us, and I'm not trying to imply that anybody is saying that, but I don't believe that they've provided us with a budget where there wasn't a lot of real deliberate consideration given to the situation that the city is in as far as economics are concerned, with our reduction in the property tax. So I think that, there was some serious consideration given by the staff, and I think a lot of it is reflected in the budget that they gave us. Now, that doesn't say there isn't any opportunities for some, for additional review and looking at it, but, I just wanted to say that, again, I think there was a real earnest effort on the staff's part.
And we spent 4 long nights up here. The general public wasn't here. Yeah, a bunch of nights, having those departments present their individual budgets and what they have spent, what they're going to spend, their new budget. And, this was the first year that budget has been considered by entire council. In prior years, 3 of you have been on the budget committee and went through all of this stuff and came to council with a recommendation to council. So I think Ed and I both agreed this year that with it being as complicated as it was and as important as it was for us to do the right thing, we decided that we would include the full council in developing this budget, which I think we did and have done a very good job of combing it pretty thin. And I think we leave it to those I think those department heads heard us very clearly in all those meetings that we want them to be efficient, Don, and we want them to continue to look for efficiencies, and us too. And if it takes outside sources to do that, I think we committed in the last meeting to do that with the departments that we feel like need to. I mean, Alan Mueller did a pretty good job of going through, the planning and permitting area and finding some areas that we made some major changes in. And if there's some other areas,
In those discussions, those hours we had, that came up several ideas that everybody agreed that they were good ideas. And that came from lay people, us, about budgets that's peculiar to certain areas like utilities and things of that nature. So it just makes good sense. I've never been a part of an organization that didn't bring in some other source to find out if we're not doing a good job. What if? operating outside of the box. Try to determine if we're doing the best that we can possibly be. That's just a necessary part of doing business. It's not an indictment on anybody. It's just that we should improve upon our practices whenever we can, especially when we're dealing with funds. And I also like to commend council, not council, but the staff. They went through a whole lot of gut-wrenching cuts. Some I would have never thought that they would. So that is, again, it's not an indictment on staff. It's just that it's a good practice.
Very good. I definitely want to commend staff for each time we asked them to go back and look at their numbers again, they did and sharpen their pencils quite a bit. But Wes, I do want to make sure I understand this, and it's on the debt service issue. And that is, I'm just going back to the 400-page document of our budget. I'm looking at page 33. It says debt service fund summary. And the bottom line, the ending fund balance of June 30th of 2013, there shows $4,552,000. And you're saying it's now, by not changing the rate, it's going to be down to 3.983. And I'm just trying to figure out where that 570,000 change is, because that's more than the 482 that we started out with.
Yes, it is. It is $1.2 million or something like that. It's going, because we're going from, we're making up for, it's more than 1.4 debt service. You're more than 483,000.
Well, I'm just going by that beginning shortfall that we started out with on your very first slide.
The 483,000.
We're not changing the 483.
Okay.
We're deep, that's going to take away from general fund balance.
Okay.
The debt service,
It's different.
we have $8 million of debt service. Well, we're going to pay, and we weren't going to pay, but we're only getting like $7 million in taxes. So we're going to eat $1 million of that fund balance.
By not changing the debt service side of our tax
That's right,
rate.
not collecting as much taxes as we should.
Okay, so the revision here is the fiscal year ¡23 budget won't be a $4.5 million ending balance, it's going to be a 3.983 ending balance.
You got it.
We also,
Just make sure
we also should recognize that not only staff's tighten its belt, but we have a number of new services that are coming online next year, and facilities, and they're all included and paid for in this budget that we had no deficit, because we adjusted the ending balance.
Speaking of that, Scott, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
With facilities. If, just humor me a little bit. If that was a question and we had to deal with drainage, who would we go to?
In some words, just a drainage issue inside the city limits, I would be the lead person on that.
If we had to go to power, like electricity and stuff like that, who would we go to?
Depends what you mean. The purchasing...
From a city standpoint, who?
The purchasing department handles the city's contract and letting out for bid. The building maintenance area handles the city facilities on a regular basis. Street lights and street operations is from the public works budget.
Are you talking about a liaison between?
We do have a commercial liaison, Bob Pearson, with CenterPoint Energy is kind of taking the lead for Missouri City for power issues inside of Missouri City as the area service representative, but he's a CenterPoint employee. Normally, Public Works contacts him.
Okay.
On that.
Thank you.
Is that you talking about? That what you're talking about? Internally or externally?
Well, I'm trying to find out who's that one internal guy that's really has an expertise in utilities rather than just coming to you all the
Generally,
time.
You're looking at it.
Sharon or myself, yes, sir. And if it involves franchise agreements or something, then the lady on your left.
Thank you.
Could I get a clarification of the motion that was made that we're about to vote on?
Yeah,
Do you have?
to approve and
I got
adopt the
my notes
budget
As far as,
with that change only. It's not doing away with those items.
Reducing the debt service revenue
21%.
21% to using a rate of 18 cents
And
instead
it
of
does not
19.
change
and
the
use of
tax
fund
rate.
balance, INF fund balance.
So it's still at 52?
Yes, 5284.
Yeah, tax
Yeah, I'm
rate's
not
still at
understanding
52.
what the 21% is why that's in the motion, and to me, it seems to,
We went to what we went to last year. So I think we went to 21%. We can just, I mean, we have
it
to
sounds like
give
we're limiting ourselves if we put a number on it here.
So it's.
Well, we don't want to go below a certain number.
Yeah, it's,
Well, we have, the way the city manager has structured for presentation, and we do have some guidelines from GASB. So, but we do have, he's limited to 20%, and we're going to so notate that as a reserve, a designated fund balance. And then anything below that will be available for spending.
But if we go below that, that is a policy decision that council has to make.
Yes.
in fact, one of the things that we want to do next year to really to make put y'all in the policy driver position at the beginning of this is where you set, essentially either you can affirm your 21% as far as your general fund reserves, or you can set that percentage as something else. You can agree that as far as where you tentatively sit in relation to property tax increases versus use of fund balances to pay, have kind of what I usually call a fiscal, an annual fiscal policy that you review before we bring you the budget in the first place. And so we've got you already set in that place. Where do you want to be in relation to the budget of how we balance it before you get to this point?
Okay, but this motion is basically setting it as a minimum of 21%, not to fall below that.
We will designate it, well, we will designate, this is getting a different, I mean, this is kind of where I'm struggling with it. I'm used to where you have a general fund reserve that's a certain percentage, that's essentially, it's lockbox, you're not touching that amount. So, what we had shown, I think, was 25%. What we'll do in this one is we're going to show 21%, which I calculated out earlier, it's $6,598,082. And we're going to have that as a line item in there as far as general fund reserves. And then you'll have fund balance. When we come back with the market study, we'll bring to council to look at as far as a budget amendment.
But the council's policy is 15 to 25%.
Right.
Which means council will have to make that policy decision if it's going to reduce the ending balance. In order to do that, I think you need a number. Now, whether the number is 20 cents or 20% or 21%, you need a number.
And we want to try to get that percentage from you
I guess
beforehand versus.
But what the proposal was 25, right?
What we had proposed was 25, yes, sir.
But the existing policy, we agree, is 15 to 25%.
Correct.
Right.
And this is within that policy.
By doing what we're doing.
And, I mean,
So what is the motion?
So it still keeps the tax rate at .52?
Are you confused, Caroline?
Well,
Bobby just need to know what the motion is.
To change that 25% presented to us, we will have to amend the motion in order to change it to 20%.
That's what we're asking.
that's
the
what's on the
motion.
table
21%
currently.
Well, whatever it is, 20 or 21%, but we got to, council has to give them a number from a policy standpoint.
That we just did.
Okay.
Well, I thought the motion was
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 21%, is it not?
Yes, sir.
21%. All right. And then, perhaps everyone else is clear on this, there were additional staff reductions,
Which we,
which were rejected or
Right.
not part of
Right.
the motion.
exactly. Now, I understand what the motion was by Mayor Pro Tem Wyatt and by you, right?
Yes.
No, by Emery.
Emery.
But I had a question.
All right, are you through?
No,
Yeah, he messed it up and asked the question.
I know. All those in favor? Motion carries. Very good. Thank you, Wes. And thanks to staff for tough time. All right, item 8 are appointments. There are none. Item 9 are authorizations. There are none. Item 10A.
An ordinance of the City of Missouri City, Texas, amending the general budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2011 and ending June 30, 2012, transferring various appropriations among accounts, appropriating supplemental revenue to various fund accounts, authorizing the appropriate city officials to take steps necessary to accomplish such transfers, making certain findings and containing certain provisions relating to the subject.
Your motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Marshall made the motion, Mayor Pro Tem Wyatt made the second. Is there discussion? This is the first and final reading. All those in favor? Motion carries. Item 11, resolutions. There are no resolutions. Item 12.
I do have an announcement. In an effort of encouraging economic development, next Wednesday, June 27th, we will be receiving a trade delegation from Vietnam come to visit our city. So I encourage the mayor will be here to sign the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, but I encourage all the council and all the staff to come and to show the support to receive this delegation. This will be happening from right over here, 10 o'clock, and then from 11 to 12, to show the delegation to give a tour to the city.
And thanks for doing that, Danny.
Appreciate it.
Going to show them the opportunities they got here.
Yes, sir. Hopefully we'll increase the tax revenue so we don't have to try to cutting it.
Gonna bring some money with it.
Yes, sir.
It's on the calendar, I believe.
And for those of you who want to learn Vietnamese quickly, so I will give you a quick course.
I don't think there's any hope for me.
Mayor, I failed to mention, Chief Sanders was very much a part of the parade. We were glad to have him there, and forgive me, Chief, for overlooking you.
Well, I know it was hard because they all had on white.
Yeah.
Until them farmer from policemen, huh?
Oh, they all look like.
He had lightning fires that he had. Must have.
Yeah. The other item on item 12 is for me to kind of bring you all up to speed on where we are to the best I can without violating our contract with Metro, and we will have an executive session the first week in July where I can actually discuss the legal issues that are involved in this. But as you all well know, and you've probably read in the paper and you're reading in other papers, and there's another article going to come out in the Chronicle probably this week. Metro is actually made up of 14 small cities, the city of Houston and Harris County. The board is made up of 5 members from the city of Houston, 2 are appointed by the small cities, and 2 are appointed by Harris County. Obviously, if you can count, you can see that the city of Houston controls Metro. The mayor of Houston appoints those 5 appointees and actually appoints the chairman. Metro began in 1978, and that's when the city of Missouri City chose to get into Metro, because at that time, I must say that Metro gave the city an opportunity to do things with our public transportation systems, streets, sidewalks, traffic signals and such, that we didn't have the funds to do. So there was an election in 1978, and Missouri City and the other 13 smaller cities chose to join Metro. Now bear in mind there are 23 other cities in the Houston Metro service area that chose not to get into Metro. Sugar Land, Stafford, Pasadena, Conroe, all of those are in Metro service area. In the legislation in 1978, it was set aside that you could take a penny of your sales tax that is paid in and devote it to Metro. And that's Metro's primary funding. They get 1 cent sales tax from the 14 multi-cities, the city of Houston, and Harris County. And I will say that over those years, I can tell you that we've done projects such as Cartwright Road, the bridge over Oyster Creek on Cartwright Road, Gessner expansion, the blinking yellow lights at school crossings, the traffic signal at Walmart and Highway 6, the Walmart at at Sienna Plantation. All of those were done with some money, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But in 1994, the cities of Humble, Missouri City, and Katy, which represent the 3 largest of the 14 multi-cities, Missouri City being the largest of those 14 cities, legislatively because Missouri City is the largest by population of those 14 cities. I have chaired that multi-city coalition for the past 18 years. Legislatively, the mayor of the largest city chairs that coalition. In 1994, the three of us went to the legislature to get out of Metro. And the reason that we were wanting to get out of Metro is that the three of us pay in about 80% of the total sales tax of the total 14 cities, excluding City of Houston. They're the gorilla in the room. The 14 of us pay about $23 million a year in sales tax into Metro. Their piece of it. Actually, there's some 46, almost $50 million that goes to Metro, but anyway. In 1994, we had the ability to get out of Metro, but we chose not to for a simple reason that we thought that mobility, and still do, that mobility is a regional issue. It's not just concentrated in one particular area. But because we had the ability to get out and we had the votes in the legislature to get out because of the political people that served on the Transportation Committee at that time, the three of us cut a special deal with Metro. And the deal is that we would pay our penny in and we would get a half of our penny back, but we have to do mobility projects with that. We have to continue to fund street improvements. Those that were around during that time may remember that fund as being called the pothole money. That's what they call general mobility. Mayor Lanier, who was Mayor of Houston at that time, saw that general mobility was as important as mass transit was to all of us. So he put into place the current understanding that's there today, that 25 cents out of every penny that is collected by Metro today goes into what is called the General Mobility Fund that you read about so much today. The General Mobility Fund. And that General Mobility Fund is what used to be called the pothole money, and it has to be used for streets, sidewalks, traffic signals, and all that other stuff. It cannot be used for transit. Cannot be used for buses, can't be used for trains, can't be used for commuter rail, can't be used for anything. It has to be used for general mobility projects. We thought that was a good deal at the time because we at least were going to get our fair share. So in today's environment, we pay in about $6 million. We did in this past year, about $6 million, and these are round numbers, don't anybody hold me to it, press specifically. These are round numbers. Paying about $6 million, that's our whole penny. And quarterly, Metro cuts us a check for half of that, comes back to the city, and that's what we use to do sidewalks, street improvements, traffic signals, maintaining the traffic signals that we have inherited now from TxDOT, because once the city of Houston, the city of Missouri City reached a population of 50,000 people, all of the traffic signals that you see in the city of Missouri City, even those along major highways, which is where ours are, Highway 6, 1092, Cartwright, Texas Parkway, we had to take those over to maintain them. We can do that with that Metro money because it's what's called traffic mitigation. In 2003, there was a rail referendum that you all may remember that was put out for the general public to vote on that said they wanted rail in the city of Houston. And one of those projects that was voted on in 2003, one of the three commuter rail projects, was the 90A project. The piece that goes from the Fannin Street Terminal to Missouri City. Now, needless to say, I know that none of you really have heard a whole lot about the 90A project because, quite frankly, they just kind of stuck it over to the side and have really not cared anything about 90A because they want it all in Houston. A year and a half ago, Congressman Green got very involved, Al Green got very involved in the 90A project, really about 2 years ago, and said, I want this project in my district. And says, why hasn't anything been done? You know, Congressman, they voted on it in 2003, they've not done anything with it. So before the current board that's in place today went out of office, and that was the former mayor's board, they passed a resolution in December of 2010 that appropriated $500,000 to do part of the engineering and environmental study for the 90A project. Now bear in mind, the 90A project has been under study for 12 years. I initiated the study 12 years ago. When that particular congressman says that it wasn't feasible to work and never would work, and we did a feasibility study that said it would. And that's why it was on the ballot in 2003. The Congressman Green went to the federal government last year and got $1 million earmark appropriated for the 90A project. Well, for those people in this room that read, earmarks were done away with, and so is our $1 million. So it's not there today. When you talk to Metro today about the 90A project, they will tell you point blank there is no money for it. Although in the last 2 weeks, they've had 4 public hearings, one of them being right next door in this church, telling people that, oh yeah, it's still out there, and probably 2018. I will direct you to a video stream meeting of Metro's capital budget meeting on May the 24th, and you can go look it up yourself, where they did away with the 90A project. Basically killed it and said it's only feasible to do buses down 90A and not rail. And there's no money for it. There is a move today. In the 2003 referendum that passed what was called the traffic mitigation rail issue, it mandates that Metro have another election in 10 years, which is 2013, to either continue that general mobility funding or do away with it. Now, the rail proponents want it all. They want to do away with the general mobility funding. And when they do away with the general mobility funding, it all goes into the City of Houston's rail projects. That's our $3 million that we're getting in our current budget. If we lose that general mobility funding, people, it equates to a 13% tax hike, 6 cents on the dollar, for us to regain that general mobility funding. That's how important it is. To Katy, it's 37% property tax increase. The city of Humble will be broke. The city of Humble is a city of 27,000 people that has a police force that's 3 times what it needs, because it has a daily population of some 350,000 people that come into that city every day, and they have to have that police force to manage those people. If they lose that general funding, they're going to be bankrupt. So what we're fighting for right now, the 14 multi-cities have the support of 3 congressmen and a number of legislators who signed a letter to the Metro Board that says, don't take that general mobility funding away from those small cities. The City of Houston is proposing that the fee be capped, that it be capped based on the 2014 revenue number. Now bear in mind, people, that last year Mayor Parker passed a bond referendum called Rebuild Houston. And she passed that bond referendum dependent upon general mobility funding to retire some of that debt. But she's satisfied with the fact that her $65 million will grow to $85 million in 2014, and she's willing to cap her $85 million. I would too, if I were her. We're not. We're in a growing mode. The city of Katy is in a growing mode. City of Humble's in a growing mode. we're not willing to cap our funding rate at a 2014 rate, and they want to do it for 20 years. So let's say that rate was, let's say we had gotten up to $8 million in 2014 in our sales tax, and our half pennies of $4 million. They want us to cap for 20 years what we get back as $4 million. We can't pass that bond issue next year that we're talking about. We can't maintain what we're doing today if we have to do that. So the 14 of us have formed a coalition. 11 of the cities have hired a lobbyist, a very strong lobbyist, to help them with it. The other 3 of us are bound under a contract not to do certain things, and that's why I can't discuss that here. But I want you all to understand that you're going to get emails, if you haven't already, that are being blogged out there telling our citizens to email the mayor and the board of Metro that it's time Metro quit subsidizing the smaller cities. Do you hear what I said? It is time they quit subsidizing us with our own damn money. It's just a reverse. We're subsidizing Metro. It is our citizen sales tax that is going to Metro to fund their projects. They aren't subsidizing anybody. So if you get those emails, and there is a meeting being held tonight at Metro, a public meeting of which all I did was send a letter and say we've already said what we're going to say, but there's a public hearing tonight, and the rail proponents are down there saying, let's put it all in transit. Let's quit giving those small cities that general mobility funding. That's what the citizens want. You need to stand up and be spoken and be heard. I'm doing what I can on my end, and the 14 of us have the county on our side. I was just, this past Thursday, was invited to go to Dallas with Congressman Green to see what DART has done in Dallas. It is unbelievable, what they've done. But Congressman Green asked one question which I thought was very interesting. He asked the chairman of the board of DART why he thought that they had been so successful. He said, because we have a partnership with the citizens involved. They trust us. And the congressman looked at me and said, isn't that unique? I said, yeah, it is, because none of us trust Metro, unfortunately. I can pass this around to you and look at it, but guys, I will continue to keep you informed. It's going to take some work, legal work, that I'll discuss at our meeting in July, but from the general public standpoint, don't let them tell you that the general mobility funding needs to go to transit in Houston, Texas. We've got to have it, and we're going to continue to do it. And I'll keep you all informed the best I can. It's hadn't been fun. I'm so passionate about it, but.
Do you have anything else?
Nope. No, we don't have an executive session. So. Very good. Thank you, guys.